So, after looking at the worst dads in animation, I think it's only fair that we next explore cartoons' worst mums.
The important thing is, we're a family.
No, it's not!
These are ladies who are just unfit to be a parent, and in some cases cause their kids to have deep psychological issues. There's a lot of contenders, so quickly comment your pick for the worst cartoon mum now. It created some really interesting debates last time. So seeing as last time in the worst dads we kicked off with Mr. Turner, I think it's only right we now start with his wife.
Oh my gosh! We're the bad parents!
And as discussed, these two are constantly abandoning their kid to be tortured by his evil babysitter Icky Vicky. But while I believe Mr. Turner is just simply too stupid to see that she's evil, I don't think we can excuse Mrs. Turner. Time and time again, Mrs. Turner is shown to be far smarter than her husband, and it was even revealed that she was a freaking secret spy.
A Russian submarine?
I was a double agent.
Therefore, I think deep down Mrs. Turner knows Vicky is evil, but she just turns a blind eye because she's far more concerned with her own happiness over her kids.
You're not old enough for this movie, and we're not taking you!
On the plus side though, for Timmy, I always felt that Wanda and Cosmo were far better parents to him. Wanda obviously cared deeply for her godson, and if I did my best mums video, she'll definitely be very high on that list.
Hi, empty bus seat. Did you miss us?
Only a whole lot!
And while we're in the Nickelodeon realm, we'll next have Miriam from Hey Arnold. Because in my worst dads video, loads of you commented that Helga's dad should have been on the list, and when I asked about worst moms, Helga's parents were brought up again. A lot. But seeing as I haven't watched Hey Arnold in years, I asked YouTuber Dust Till Sean to help me out. I discovered his videos a few months back, and his deep dives into the old Nick shows are absolutely awesome. So I'll let him take it from here.
Hey Lydia, I cannot thank you enough for inviting me to this amazing celebration of animation's worst moms. I'm just so happy to be here. Now of course we can't talk about animation's worst moms and not bring up Helga's mom from Hey Arnold. Let's be honest, both of Helga's parents are absolute trash. I mean, they're one of the main reasons that I made a nearly 2.5 hour long video about her life. However, the situation with Miriam might be the saddest out of all the worst moms in animation. Right out the gate, let's address the elephant in the room. It's not directly addressed in the show, but it's heavily implied that Miriam is an alcoholic. Throughout the whole series, she is seen slurring her words, stumbling, and constantly talking about how she needs a smoothie. In one episode, Arnold even makes a comment about how Miriam got her license taken away, implying that it was a result of possibly driving under the influence. Now, I'm not saying that would make you a bad parent by default, but Miriam clearly let her alcoholism lead to her neglecting her kid. We would see Helga being sent to school with crackers and shaving cream in her lunchbox because her mom threw it together, possibly in a drunken stupor, before she proceeded to fall asleep on the ground behind the couch. On top of that, we would also see both Miriam and Bob neglect her throughout the series in favor of her sister Olga, which at times would result in Helga at a young preschool age walking to school in the pouring rain with no jacket and feeling like no one cares about her. The icing on the cake that makes it even more sad is the fact that we would actually see Miriam sober up, get a job, and literally become a rock star mom in one episode. She was spending quality time with Helga, packing her healthy lunches before driving her to school, and honestly setting an amazing example for Helga. But that wouldn't last long, as we would see Miriam let her job get to her head and consume her entire life. She would stop making lunches for Helga, stop driving her to school, and couldn't even find a second to talk to her because her job was just too important. Ultimately, Miriam would end up leaving the job, which was just a stand-in position for Big Bob at the Beeper Emporium, and going back to being her normal word-slurring, sleeping behind the couch at 2 in the afternoon self. Of course, along with that came with the neglect towards Helga, and we would end up seemingly back at square one. The sad truth is that Miriam, whether she's sober and working a job, or wasted and sleeping behind the couch, just doesn't really have what it takes to be a good mother towards Helga. She has an addictive personality that could cling to smoothies and work, but unfortunately it just couldn't cling to being a good mother. And that's why, at least in my opinion, she takes the cake for animation's worst mom.
Number 4, Agnes Skinner from The Simpsons. When I was thinking of bad mothers in Springfield, Agnes Skinner instantly came to mind. This old bat has been treating her 50-year-old son like a literal child for years.
You can push your crib into Mommy's room tonight.
It's not a crib, it's a cot.
She is also constantly demeaning him and putting him down.
You're failing, Seymour. What is it about you and failure?
She has her wrinkly old thumb firmly pressed over him and likes to have complete control over her son and every aspect of his life.
I told you not to play in the neighbor's yard.
It's a party, Mother. I was invited.
But yeah, it's a complicated and messed up relationship to say the least, and I'm very glad she's not my mum.
There's Mother now. Watching me.
Also, fun fact, Agnes Skinner is voiced brilliantly by Tress MacNeille, who seems to have a real talent for voicing old cruel mothers, because she also voiced Mum in Futurama.
Where's my thigh blaster?
Right here, Mom.
Shut up!
Okay, thank you.
The first time we met Mum was in season 1 when she appeared to be a kindly old lady and the owner of Mum Corp. But then we find out she's really an evil business mastermind who puts her own greed above everyone else, including her 3 sons, who she, like Agnes, constantly berates and slaps.
You dumb bastards! Ow!
She refers to her 3 boys as milk-sucking leeches and is always forcing them to do her bidding. Despite this treatment, however, they all want a wife just like their mother.
Someday I want to marry a girl like her.
Beth Smith from Rick and Morty. When I thought about bad mothers, I have to admit that Beth didn't instantly spring to mind. But the more I thought about it, the more I realised that she really isn't the best parent. Like, at all. For one thing, she lets her teenage son go on all kinds of insane and dangerous adventures across the multiverse. This is in part due to her own severe daddy issues, and as such is terrified of Rick leaving if she says no to the adventures. Incidentally, putting her family's life in constant danger by entrusting them in the care of her crazy dad. What's more is that in one adventure, she instantly chose Summer's life over Morty's without a single hesitation. I mean, come on, you're a mum, you're not supposed to have favourites, or at least fake a little bit of hesitation. But even though she chose Summer, that's not to say she's really great to her either, seeing as she once hit her over the head with a bottle of wine and told her that she should be thankful that she wasn't aborted.
That came out wrong. That came out very wrong.
But yeah, on that note, let's move to Mrs. Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb. Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz is a supervillain whose attempts to take over the tri-state area are constantly thwarted by Perry the Platypus.
A platypus? Perry the Platypus?
Yep, Heinz is a pretty eccentric guy with some serious issues, which isn't so surprising once we found out about his sad childhood. It all started on the day of his birth, when both of his parents didn't bother showing up. In short, his parents completely neglected him. They never even threw him a birthday party. So he threw his own at the age of 5, which is just so sad. It was so bad that he left his family to live in the wild with a pack of ocelots, and when he eventually returned home, they made him the family's garden gnome. He wasn't allowed to talk, wasn't allowed to move, and he wasn't even able to sleep. Later on, when his mother got pregnant again, they were expecting a baby girl, so she knitted tons and tons of dresses. But when the baby turned out to be a boy, they made Heinz wear all the dresses instead, causing everyone at school to make fun of him. His mother favoured the new baby brother Roger, and no matter what Heinz did, he could never impress her. And when he was too scared to jump off the high dive, his parents pretty much disavowed him and wore bags over their heads to hide their shame. But despite having crappy parents and dealing with his own childhood trauma, Heinz is a pretty great dad to his daughter.
It's for my daughter Vanessa's birthday. I try to throw her a party every year.
Honestly, I'd love to do a more in-depth timeline on him, so do let me know down in the comments if you'd like to see that in the future. Next up, Mallory Archer. To put it mildly, Sterling Archer has some issues. And one of his biggest revolves around his mummy. I mean, it's so bad that the idea of his own mother dying gets him hard.
The thought of me dead gives you an erection?
No, just half of one.
Dissecting this messed up relationship is far too big of a job for just a section in a video, so let's quickly run through his messed up childhood very, very briefly. Basically, he was born in a bar in Tangier during a shootout, after which she abandoned him for the first 5 years of his life because of her profession.
I don't have a mother, and if I did, I'd hate her!
And on his 6th birthday, she left him again. On another birthday, she stole his new bike just so she could teach him a lesson. Then on Halloween night, Mallory took all of young Sterling's candy in a game of cards. And if that wasn't bad enough, she then made fun of him for throwing up after drinking too much.
I don't feel good.
What the hell good are you?
Oh, God.
And at 9 years old, she moved home without even telling him, causing him to get lost and go to a police station.
9 years old and bawling in that police station like a little girl. Huh.
Honestly, considering his upbringing, it's surprising that Archer isn't more messed up. But to make things even more complicated, Mallory Archer then becomes Sterling's boss at the Secret Intelligence Service, which made for plenty of awkward moments. It has to be said that Mallory has always been very controlling and manipulative, but despite these flaws, I do feel that she does love her son. Her voice actress Jessica Walter sadly passed away in 2021, and in a really sweet tribute to her, they wrote her character out of the show by explaining that she was retiring. And in that same episode, she left Sterling a farewell letter to read.
Because from wherever I am, I'll be watching over you. Love, Mother.
South Park. In my Worst Dads video, Kitty Monk went over the many awful dads in South Park, so are the mums just as bad? Well, the answer is yes. Maybe. I mean, there's Cole's mom, Sheila for one, aka the biggest bitch in the whole wide world. Now that's a lady who is always going way too far, such as her war against the swearing in Terrence and Phillip, and basically causing the war with Canada in the South Park movie. But although her parenting is questionable sometimes, she's hardly the worst. No, I think that title belongs to Butters' mum, Linda Stotch. So last time we discussed how she tried to drown her very own son when she found out her husband was cheating on her with men in bathhouses, but that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to her crappy parenting. Yeah, I mean, her and Steven once sent their boy to a gay conversion camp, which is very awful in itself, combined with the fact that Butters isn't even gay. But even if he was, these camps are absolutely evil and should just not exist. And then there was also that time where Butters faked his own death by using a pig carcass, so his parents buried the remains at a pet cemetery expecting him to come back to life. And obviously still being very much alive, Butters eventually returns home and his parents then thought he was a demon, so they naturally chained him up in the basement.
Well, I'm pretty hungry.
It's hungry.
But I'm not even close to being done yet. Because when they thought that Butters was seeing ghosts, they took him to a doctor who did some really horrible and humiliating experiments to him. They also took him to see a psychiatrist because they misinterpreted his playful imagination as him having a multiple personality disorder. And then to top it all off, they grounded him in his room for 16 years. But I'm gonna say, this isn't just on Linda, as she and her husband made these decisions together. But she still doesn't get a pass. Beatrice Sugarman from BoJack Horseman. So BoJack didn't have the best upbringing. His parents were deeply unhappy and were constantly fighting. And not only that, but Beatrice would force her son to dress up and perform for her and her friends.
But I don't feel like singing.
Nobody gives a damn what you feel.
And when she caught him trying one of her cigarettes, she ordered him to finish the entire pack, all because she didn't want to be the mother of a quitter.
I'm punishing you for being alive.
She constantly tells her son that he was a mistake who ruined her body and destroyed her life.
You better grow up to be something great, to make up for all the damage you've done.
I will.
But honestly, BoJack Horseman is such a layered and complex show where everything isn't going to be black and white. And not to excuse her bad parenting, but Beatrice is also someone who has a very tragic past. And if you want a more in-depth video about her life, then I'd really recommend watching Johnny Two Cellos' timeline video all about her. Number 11, Adalia Blight from Owl House. When I posed the question on who Cartoon's worst mum is, quite a few of you brought up Adalia. And this is a bit awkward because I haven't actually seen Owl House. But I know someone who has, and that's Leah from Tuna Ruins. She's an awesome creator who has covered Owl House a few times over on her channel, so basically she's far more qualified than me to talk about it. So take it away, Leah.
When it comes to the Owl House, one of the primary themes has to do with parenthood and the relationship between child and guardian. You have Ida and Lilith and their complicated relationship with their parents, Camila and Luce's heartwarming but also heartbreaking relationship, and the blood-boiling relationship between Bellows and Hunter. Each of these are entirely different, and each of them have a lot to offer in terms of dynamics and potential relatability. But there's only one mother in this show that can take the award for the worst mother, and that is none other than Odalia Blight, parent of Amity, Amira, and Edric. Let's just say that Blight being her last name had to be intentional, because Odalia certainly does damage her children as her namesake would imply. Odalia is a cutthroat businesswoman selling abomination products to the residents of the Boiling Isles, and she isn't above using her children to meet her bottom line. In fact, it seems to be her #1 sales pitch to use Amity against her will as an accessory to capitalism. Anything that could possibly hurt their sales or reputation isn't allowed, resulting in Amity being treated like a puppet by her mother, which makes the climax of the series all that more ironic. She and her husband even forced her to distance herself from Willow, who at the time in her childhood was her closest friend, simply because it wasn't good for optics. When she grew older and harder to manipulate, Odalia even made Amity wear an oracle necklace to scold Amity in her mind and control her without anyone realizing. Needless to say, it was more than deserved that by the end of the series, she ends up divorced and estranged from all 3 of her children. Here's to hoping that Alador can repair his relationship with his children and do better than he and his wife had done when they were married.
So, seeing as I named the worst cartoon dad Peter Griffin, then you had to have known that Lois would be here too. And while Peter has been physically abusive to his daughter Meg, Lois is more emotionally cruel. Instead of using a baseball bat, she uses her own words to cut her daughter deep.
This looks just like my room at home.
Yeah, except for all the trophies and pictures of friends.
Not to mention, she also made out with Meg's boyfriend and would have gone even further if she wasn't caught in the act. I mean, Lois is so vindictive and petty that she once took a photo of herself eating Meg's school lunch. And look, I'm gonna stop right here and say I've gone on at length about Lois's bad behavior for years on this channel. There's tons of videos about it, so I won't bore you now. But yeah, suffice it to say that Lois is a very awful mother. However, it has to be said that the more recent seasons have shown a more softer and more maternal side to Lois.
Never mess with a mom.
But do these good deeds erase the decades of constant abuse? No, I don't think so. But at least it's a step in the right direction. Now, we've come to the ultimate question. Who is animation's worst mother? I have to say that this was a much harder decision than the worst dads video. I literally spent days and days going over this in my head and constantly changing my mind. But ultimately, if I had to choose, then I think I will have to go with Beatrice Sugarman.
You ruined me, BoJack.
I know.
It's really tricky because a lot of these shows vary in tone, but with a show like BoJack Horseman, which is a whole lot darker, you obviously have to take those characters a lot more seriously, despite their appearance. Beatrice, in short, was a psychologically abusive mother towards BoJack. She constantly punished and scolded him just because he was born. Even after her death, she left an everlasting impact on BoJack and constantly stays with him for the rest of his life. Just like Dr. Doofenshmirtz, but to a much more realistic degree. Now this of course is just my opinion, so do let me know your choice down below in the comments, and if I'm wrong, go on, tell me why I'm wrong. Also, big thank you to Toon Ruined and Dust Till Sean for their help. They actually took the time to write and record their own section, so please subscribe to them.